AEW returns to Toronto, and I remember Forbidden Door 2 years ago being a pretty fun event, but with this one, it's packed once more. It wouldn't be an AEW show if it wasn't packed with matches. Cope and Christian Cage up against FTR was the first match. So this one is years in the making. FTR and E and C have a close relationship outside the squared circle. As a match, honestly, to be honest, 100%, I didn't enjoy it a lot. There was some good from it. For one, Copeland did the 5-knuckle shuffle and the AA. And it's a bitter feeling to know that they didn't face each other in this retirement tour. I feel like that match got too dramatic for its own good when I personally believe they were better off having a normal conclusion and all the drama after the match as opposed to during the match, because it felt like the match had those kickouts and near falls for the sake of it to force it to be a classic when I think they could have reached a memorable threshold with the original style of the match. Stokely got involved, refusing to let it go down the way it did. Then Beth Phoenix turned Beth Copeland officially debuted in AEW and steered the team of Copeland and Christian to victory. Then after the match was like Extreme Rules 2022, almost 70 or 80% down. Nick Wayne returned to observe all of this. FTR dropped Beth Copeland with a pile driver, all while Adam Copeland had to watch on in horror and disbelief. One has to wonder how this tag team match would fare in the no DQ stipulation. The four men are old school, so I think there's a strong chance that it's better than this. But of course, FTR got great heat here, seeing as it's in Toronto, and they obliterated Adam Copeland's wife in his hometown. Big Bill just decided to call out the Mad King Eddie Kingston. Kingston's been sidelined for several months due to injury, and AEW didn't bother making this a surprise. It's more about going straight to business. Kingston's absence is a bit felt in AEW. He offers something entirely different and gritty to the promotion, and he's not my favorite wrestler, but I understand his appeal and the fact that he's got great promo skill. You basically believe in who he says he is. Bill's talking nonsense about him with Brian Keith by his side, and to him in storyline, he felt like he was everything that wouldn't appeal to the internet wrestling fan. I think Bill is good in his own place. There's always got to be somebody in this type of position for a company. You know, you shouldn't expect more or expect less for said person. I almost thought they'd pull an ECW style squash. Don't know why, but I had my reasons to believe it with the way the story was set up. It wouldn't be a Kingston match without the flashes of All Japan Pro Wrestling. The match as a whole felt like something you'd see on Dynamite, and of course, that was probably your expectation before the match began. The story was more about Kingston properly integrating back into the squared circle. Both men seem to underestimate each other here. Big Bill's kicking out at one, with Kingston being in disbelief that his best shot was nothing for that moment. The finish was awkward with the back fist. The camera caught it at the wrong angle. It also looked like Kingston missed himself, and that was enough for the victory, and it was a bit sour. Brian Keith attacks after the match despite his relationship, and out came Hook to the rescue. Much better this time around. Hook was in a situation with the ops, but seemed to straighten out, and all is cool. The match as a whole is nothing special. You know, the story is just Eddie Kingston's return, and that's all that there is to it. You know, it's not really a big match, and if anything, I didn't expect it to be some kind of great match, to be honest. Kingston's obviously going to go crazy in the next few months. You know, he looks ready, he looks happy, he looks excited and primed for this run. Tables and tacks. MJF faces Mark Briscoe. After weeks of insults from MJF towards the Briscoe family, it's finally come down to this, although it's probably months. MJF is fresh off a big match against Mystico in Arena Mexico, so he obviously probably was a bit tired coming into this one. This one was unpleasant in some ways, which is a great thing, seeing as it's called Tables and Tacks. Both guys displayed hatred and contempt for one another. MJF's shirt is a bit horrific. White collar wins. I almost couldn't believe it was real, but it is. The match was set up pretty good in the sense of having you wait for MJF to get his comeuppance, but getting there was bad. Briscoe's taking all these spots with attacks, but then MJF's spots looked even crazier once they went down. And that was a great thing they did here, you know. They drag the heels comeuppance. It's obviously inevitable, but we gotta wait for it. But Mark Briscoe was so exciting here. I don't think he's missed on pay-per-view at all. He's always giving 100%, getting a reaction from the crowd, and overall, he's always gonna be a standout of the show. MJF was already dastardly and vicious, but that increased. The guy just looked so dirty and sleazy, and this is a match that allows you to do a lot, but the way he went about things makes him look dirty. He took it the extra step. MJF realized he wasn't built for this fight, as Briscoe showed more heart and fight, and it was a wonderful story. You would say that it makes sense for Mark Briscoe to win and all that, but to see it go down is incredibly satisfying, especially after he hit the J Driller, which is the same move he wanted to hit MJF with for months. But it's great to see MJF actually take the L here. I think he's regained his form like crazy. He is back to being where he was 3 years ago. Honestly, I think he should be world champion. I don't know if he could be world champion right now, but I think in the near future, he should be the world heavyweight champion. I really think this time around, they won't make the mistakes that they made in his first title reign. And in addition, he's generating the heat. He's one of the guys in the headlines, all that. So I think it should go down. I think MJF should get that title reign in the near future. The Hurt Syndicate versus Ricochet in the Gates of Agony. So Ricochet has a problem with the Hurt Syndicate. I didn't think much of this battle, and if anything, I thought this was the one that belonged on Dynamite the most from the show. Hurt Syndicate are still cool as hell. I kind of wish for them everyone to interact with the bigger talent on the roster, such as the Don Callis family, the Ops, have a hunger for the Unified or the World Championship. They're respected, so I don't think it will be long before we see some of these stories unfold. Some of the action was solid here, but ultimately it wasn't much. MVP here was a weak link for the team, and Ricochet and GOA took advantage. We've heard rumors that a new member is on the way, so perhaps this is how they do it? We'll see. Mercedes Mone versus Riho for the TBS Championship. Okay, it's been a while since we've seen Riho. And again, you and I know the result as it relates to the match. I'm not expecting something crazy here. However, what we are looking forward to is the action. We're here for the match. The CEO almost got a department store full of belts. Riho seemed like a super complicated opponent for the CEO initially, and then this comes down to her being smaller and just different as it relates to her offense. Poor Riho, she had to up the intensity to actually make her mark in the match. Mercedes had to up the intensity to actually make her mark in the match, but this aggression would also cause her to get out of hand. I liked many parts of this match, but the crowd wasn't invested. I felt like the crowd was watching a pre-show match at times, and that might be because while the match was good, it didn't feel like there was a single moment where Mercedes Mone was in danger of losing. And I think when a match is predictable, you have to do everything to make the people doubt the result. I expected this to be a good match. I like the action here. Mercedes was vicious, often frustrated and angry with Riho. It offered a different side to her, seeing as she's the bigger woman here. Riho's offense was good, but I didn't feel anything here. And I kind of hate that because I thought this was a good match. But the crowd was silent, and it's not entirely for the fact that it is predictable, but it's for the fact that nobody doubted it at all. You know, I didn't doubt it. I'm pretty sure you guys didn't doubt it as well. But there was a lot of good moments, you know, German suplex at the bridge, that meteor on the outside. A lot of good moments here, but ultimately, I don't think it's going to stand out in Mercedes Mone's title reign at all. She's probably going to have another title celebration on Wednesday. I don't know where they're going to go with her, but personally, I want to see something different. We got the matches, but we don't got a lot of the stories. I think that's a glaring hole in the presentation of Mercedes Mone. I think she needs more. They obviously value her and all that, but I think she needs some more interesting stories because we got the matches. Now, we need the stories. Kazuchika Okada defends the AEW Unified Championship against Mascara Dorado and Konosuke Takeshta. The latter two have had an amazing year. ROH, CMLL, AEW, New Japan Pro Wrestling, these guys were everywhere at every time. Dorado in particular turned up during the summer like crazy, especially in that match against Bandido. Takeshta was in the G1 tournament, having won the whole thing, so you went into this with some high expectations. When I say they surpassed them, I mean it. This match was insane. I will be hyped for Okada and Takeshta in the future, but this one was incredible. It was so exciting with all of these guys looking great. You know, they all had their moments that brought excitement and joy and hype to the match, and this was one of Okada's greatest performances in AEW. Takeshta was on point, and Dorado stole the show here. He's the odd one in this one. You know, you see Konosuke Takeshta, Kazuchika Okada, Don Callis, they got this story going, you know, a power shifting story possibly with Takeshta taking the leader role, all that. I'm losing my train of thought, but basically, they got this power struggle going on for who's number one. Dorado, though, he disrupts this whole thing with his high-flying ability. He changes the match completely with his style. I had so much fun watching it. Dorado brings out a strange style here. Stuff you usually wouldn't see in a Kazuchika Okada and Konosuke Takeshta match. Like, those two, they have the athleticism and all that, but this guy, he's lucha libre. But I really recommend for you to watch this if you haven't. It felt special watching it live. Okada and Takeshta teased something incredible is to come, whereas Dorado almost teleported himself to an important spot in AEW with just this single match. And of course, he's done well this year with his matches, but to be showcased like this in a match like this, it definitely means a lot. There was a lot of great, exciting moments throughout the match. The final sequences were absolutely incredible. You know, you saw Okada wanting to go for that Rainmaker to wrap things up, Takeshta countering everything, Dorado just flying, hitting those 450s, those moonsaults, everything. This match was crazy. But in the end, it was Kazuchika Okada who scored the victory with one of the most brutal Rainmakers you'll see in recent memory. He absolutely decapitated Dorado's head with that Rainmaker to retain the title. And of course, this continues the story between Takeshta and Okada, seeing as Okada overcame his good stablemate. Definitely, when I say this, I'm not over-exaggerating, definitely one of my favorite matches in the entire year. It just was one of those. And the reason why I say it's one of my favorite matches of the year is because there's not even a 20-second moment where this match was dull. Everything was there. Everything was out of this world. One of my favorite matches in the entire year. And I highly doubt anything following this is going to bring that level of excitement, or even in the next pay-per-view. I don't think anything is going to top this for me personally in the next few weeks. It just isn't. It's one of those matches that stands out. And it makes you feel excited and hyped for what could be one of the best showdowns of the decade, that being Konosuke Takeshta and Kazuchika Okada. Jon Moxley against Darby Allin in a coffin match. Okay, it had to come down to this, and to me, this would be a perfect way to end the Death Rider story, but I don't see it coming to a close with Daniel Garcia joining recently. It's obviously not. Mox and Darby quickly went all out. They destroyed each other from the first minute, and this spot here was incredible. And I don't know what it is with the Death Riders, but these guys always like fiddling with things that they're not supposed to. Mox brought out a lot of emotion, sending the Death Riders away and showing hate and some love to Darby, even kissing him, but shouting at him that he'll never take him out. It's almost like he wishes for Darby to eradicate this evil all over All Elite Wrestling, but it just wasn't gonna happen. There was violence, blood, hatred, all on display during this match. Bryan Danielson had promised Darby Allin against his will that he wouldn't get involved, but that didn't stop him from bringing in a bag. The bag is very familiar to Bryan, seeing as the Death Riders took him out a year ago. I was very into this one. It was a blow-off match, and they made sure you understood that. Mox was selling everything like death. Darby would throw at him some crazy stuff he'd be selling. Darby was such a great scrappy underdog here. The guy forced himself into the driver's seat, but then Pac came out. Pac looks very different with the short hair. Very different. It just looks so unusual. They did the Death Rider special with the interference, and Darby was out. Great matchup. I would have hoped for Darby to actually end this thing once and for all here, but it just wasn't gonna happen. I don't know how big this Death Rider story will expand, because it was already at its peak a couple of months ago. Wonderful matchup. Vicious, very different to the tables and tax match, I might add. You know, it was violent, but in a different kind of way. Different language, basically. I love Darby's performance here. Mox as well. Mox, he's kind of back. He's doing much better than he was in the last year. He's in better form. I like them a lot, especially the way he sold for Darby Allin during this one. Timeless Tony Storm, Jamie Hayter, Chris Statlander, and the Toxic Spider Tekla. The AEW Women's Championship is up for grabs. Okay, I think this is interesting. Multi-woman match for Tony Storm to deal with, which I don't think happened very often in her title reign. I think each of the three could be strong challengers, but on Dynamite. And when I said that, I think once I wrote that, my words came back to haunt me. But let's talk about the match. They had an odd but fascinating segment earlier this week where each woman laid their claim. I like that. But with this one, hard-hitting battle here. Hayter and Statlander brought plenty of aggression. Wheeler Yuta still getting in Statlander's ear. Great moment here with the three-woman decking Tekla. And Tekla really did bring it here too. But as a whole, this match is one of the most aggressive women's title matches I've seen recently. And I thought the result was clear as day with Timeless Tony Storm winning. But it wasn't. There was a huge surprise with Chris Statlander shocking everyone with a surprising victory. It really came from out of nowhere. It's very unexpected, especially in the moment. It's almost like they messed up and I'm like, what the hell? She actually won the thing. But it was real. It was probably the plan. And I can't say it wasn't surprising. That's one thing I do wish AEW brings more of, is these surprises like this. Not surprises for the sake of it, obviously, but surprises where it's logical. And this is one of those. Chris Statlander's been one of the best women's wrestlers in All Elite Wrestling, and she probably should have had her moment a while ago, but it's better late than never. But with regards to this match, very fun. The reason why it's fun is because all four women brought aggression. They were really laying into those shots there, and that's what makes the match for me. And when you add the surprising result, yeah, great match. I enjoy it. Dorado defend the AEW World Tag Team Championships against the Young Bucks, the team of Josh Alexander and Hechicero, and Jet Speed in a ladder match. This match is an all-out tradition, basically. Dorado are one of the most exciting tag teams around, and Bandito in particular has had a banger year. He's gone insane over the entire year, and it's still not over. He had a classic against Hechicero a few weeks ago. The most wanted, Zalo or ROH, CMLL in All Elite Wrestling. The ladder match is a concept I have contempt for. It's always been a stunt show and all that, but I'm honestly good without one for the foreseeable future. And I hate that because these guys were balling like crazy. I lost count on the spots that these four teams threw out there, but I couldn't feel much from this match. There was the insane moments, but for the most part, I have no emotion for a ladder match. Bucks were doing so many senton bombs during this one. They were jumping around, super kicks, all that. Speedball and Brody King were probably the most damaged coming out of this. Those two took a lot of punishment, especially Speedball. And I was once again very impressed with the collection of talent here. It's just, if you know me, I don't really rate ladder matches much. It's hard because you see this talent putting on a show like this, but not appreciating it as much as you should. Bandito and Brody King retained the titles here, and yeah, it was a great ladder match, but at this point, a great ladder match or a great wrestling match, I know what I'm choosing. Surprisingly, after the match, Jungle Boy, or Jack Perry, came out, and the Bucks didn't want to deal with him. They didn't like him one bit. He gets jumped, but ends up being saved by the returning Luchasaurus. Yup, he's no longer Killswitch, he's now Luchasaurus, and the duo have reformed to Jurassic Express. I'm not gonna lie, I thought this was a feel-good moment. I didn't like Jack Perry's character. I thought it was a much better in-ring performer as a face, and I don't know how this return is gonna end up. It could be a bad one, but in the moment here when they reunited, I thought it was nice. It took me back to the older days of AEW. Good times. But we'll see how it goes. Darby Allin set Jon Moxley on fire after the Death Riders accidentally left him alone with the Coffin. It's common knowledge in wrestling to never assume said person inside the coffin is dead or knocked out. It's an insane one, and I could say he is absolutely justified in his approach, although that sounds kind of crazy. And the main event, Hangman Adam Page defends the AEW World Championship against the proto-star, Kyle Fletcher. So this reminds me a lot of Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels in 1992, an established talent going up against somebody who was almost guaranteed to get to the top. And I saw the build of this match. It was presented more as Hangman versus a Don Callis guy, but that couldn't be further from the actual result during this match. Hangman heading into it was taken out. He had neck issues, and his good friend Kenny Omega was sidelined by the Don Callis family. That was the build to this match. As to the action, you could see it dripping with plenty of respect. While Fletcher was never the favorite during this match, AEW treated this like an important battle in both men's careers. The light was oddly off initially, but after that you saw the story unfold, with Fletcher having an almost odd strong hold on the match. This is a way of showing Fletcher's potential and talent. He had a very compelling game plan with the next strategy. Hangman at many points couldn't figure out how to deal with the challenger, and the work was with intent as Fletcher understood his key to victory was going after the neck. More often than not, Hangman's best work comes from fighting from under. There were so many moments where you believe Adam Page opens the match, but it's right back to the challenger. And the Don Callis family barred from ringside rule was wonderful because we didn't need melodrama to sell this match at all. There were some brutal moments and moves throughout this one, mostly from Fletcher's side. He'd catch Hangman with a super kick in midair, connect with a brainbuster. Of course, on the opposite side, you'd see something like a deadeye through a table. Hangman even honored Kenny Omega with a V-trigger, seeing as they took him out, and the final stretch of the match was truly special. The back and forths were so smooth and intense, with each guy having to pull out something random to blindside the opponent. What stood out to me was the intensity and aggression from this clothesline or lariat. Fletcher had an amazing performance, but ultimately there's a reason he's not champion, and Hangman showed him why to retain the title. Tremendous matchup. It really felt like Hart and Michaels in the sense of a story where the young guy does show why he's even in this battle, but has to learn the hard way why it's not his time. Bryan Danielson on commentary put over Kyle Fletcher like crazy, and personally I see a great future for him. That battle he had with Will Ospreay last year, one of his first matches with a new presentation, opened my eyes and realizing that this guy could be much better than he is, and he could go all the way to the very top. Tremendous matchup. However, it's not my match of the night. Alright, that's all out. I'm glazing this show like crazy because honestly, it flew by quickly. This is the thing about it. Usually when I watch an AEW show, I tire out. I don't know why. For some reason, this show, I wasn't tired by the end. It wasn't one of those. And it weirds me out because I watched a bunch of AEW shows for many years now. You know, I remember a bunch of moments. I remember a bunch of events. And after All Out 2021, they started to push their limits in terms of pay-per-view length. Here, while it was about 4.5 hours, I didn't really feel it. It passed by quickly. I think it's the best AEW pay-per-view in recent memory. I didn't really like Forbidden Door all that much. I thought there was good stuff in there, but I didn't think it was truly as good as it should be. As it relates to All Out, it was a great show. This one in particular had two standout matches though. Kazuchika Okada, Mascara Dorado, and Konosuke Takeshita's title match, and of course the main event. Other than that, you had Jon Moxley and Darby Allin in a coffin match, tables and tacks, the fatal 4-way women's championship match, the ladder match if you like ladder matches. I personally don't, to be honest. There was a lot of good stuff during the show, but those two matches, the Okada and the Hangman matches, those two in particular stood out to me the most, especially the Unified Championship match. To me, that's match of the night. I really liked that match a lot because it brought a lot of emotions, it brought a lot of spots, it brought a lot of moments. It really was a special match, and I think a lot of people rated the Hangman and Kyle Fletcher match higher, but for me, my favorite match and the one I had the most fun with was the Unified Championship match. So yeah. Alright, what did you guys think of All Out? Please comment down below. And that's it for this video. Make sure you hit the Rainmaker on the like button, or perhaps the Death Rider on the subscribe button. Peace. I'm out.